Welcome to the Krista Escamilla Show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Krista Escamilla Show. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us. We know it is precious, and we're glad you're choosing us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We also want to thank you for leaving those 5-star reviews and for liking and subscribing on YouTube or wherever you're listening, whatever podcast platform you choose to listen to. We really appreciate the support and for you to share it with your loved ones. I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest, and I can't wait to hear his story because I haven't heard it before, and I love that, and I'm so excited to hear it. We have joining us today Mr. Paul Gibbs, and Paul is with Xtreme Tank Technologies. He is the president and CEO. Thank you so much, Paul, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I cannot wait to hear your oil and gas journey, and we're going to jump into that in just a second. But first, I want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Tapestry Hotel Midland, Rig ID Workwear, Midland Cap Company, and JoinCapClub.com. Those sponsors allow us to be able to share the great stories like the one we're about to hear. So thank you. All right, Mr. Gibbs, Paul, how do you like to be? How do you like to be addressed?
Paul.
Yeah. Paul works.
Paul works.
Paul, I'm so excited to hear how you got to West Texas and really your oil and gas journey. So you can start wherever you want.
Well, I was born in West Texas. I was raised about 15 miles northeast of Big Spring.
Okay.
Dryland cotton farming, raising cattle. That was my life growing up. I actually grew up riding on the back of a horse. I did a lot of calf roping in my days and went off to college and was on the rodeo team. And
really?
So that's how I got to West Texas. I was born here.
Yeah, I love that. Born and raised.
And after college, and well, I actually worked through college. And so I've been in the oil and gas part of the world for 40 plus years now. I start adding it up and I lose toes and fingers in a hurry.
Were you one of those that said, I'm going to go off to college and I'm never going back? Or were you like, I'm getting back to West Texas as quick as I can?
No, I always wanted, West Texas is me, you know.
Yes.
It's home for me, so family was here, and I met my wife, and she's a local girl. She's actually graduated from Forsyth High School.
Oh,
you know where
fantastic.
Forsyth is.
I sure do.
I went to Oklahoma, so this has been home for us. We moved to Midland about 20 years ago, but I have been involved with oil and gas business forever. When I was a young man, I had a construction business and a welding business, and in about 1983, I went to work for a company called Mobil Oil Company.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, nowadays they call it Exxon Mobil. Well, it was Mobil in those days. I worked for them for about 10 years, and I was actually around when the Odessa American came out and said the last one out, turn out the lights.
Oh, wow.
That was the headlines on the paper. Sour crude oil was going for $6 or $7 a barrel. That's what we handled out South Howard County in the chalk fields, and a lot of secondary recovery stuff. Stuff was drilled in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and
it was a scary time. I bet.
Yeah, it was a scary time, and times were bad. In January '93, I went to work in Big Spring, Texas, at the Big Spring Refinery for Fina Oil and Chemical Company, and I thought I knew the oil field until I went set foot in the refinery. It's like I tell people, it's the oil field on steroids because. You know, you're heating crude oil up to 685 degrees and gasoline up to 965 degrees. So you have to control a lot of things, you know. So it's you can't have an off day.
An off day turns into really bad, really quick.
So that's where I spent most of my life. And when I was working for a Mobil Oil Company in 1990, we had a well or several wells we drilled in a certain place. They weren't going to allow us to bring electricity in. So we had to truck everything out. Everything was pneumatically dumped from the vessels to the tanks. And we kept on having problems putting oil in our water tank. And this happened over and over again. And we worked on the dump valves, and we did everything you're supposed to do. And it just, I don't know, it's just one of those things that anything that could go wrong there did.
Right.
And of course, when the trucks would show up, they'd haul the water off, and then when they got to the oil, they'd haul it off too. They wouldn't put it in our oil tanks, and they'd get a free pocket knife at the local SWD station. So we were losing lots of oil. So I came up with this idea about putting a tool inside the tank that floats, and it was a skimmer.
And this was in the 90s?
This was in 1990.
Okay.
And we put it in tank, and it worked so well that we decided we were building a brand new, great big water flood station. We take water, we inject it to the ground, pushes the oil, and oil well picks it up. These are on depleted fields. It's been around for 10, 20, 30, 50 years. We were building these, and they handled tremendous amount of water. Well, there's always oil carryover, so we put the tools in that tank. And this was new engineered standard tanks that had skimmers on it, and overflows and spills and you name it, weirs, you name it. And it was designed to capture any remnant of oil. Anyway, we wound up capturing 13 barrels of oil a day off of this thing.
Wow.
13 barrel oil was a pretty good stripper well. So
Yeah.
my boss said, you should patent that. And so I applied for a patent, and if you want to know the story, they told me at the patent office, they sent me a letter that says it'll take up to 2 years.
Wow.
And the first reply you'll get, they will turn you down, so reapply again.
That's what they told you?
And
You're like,
I'm kind of like, well, this is
this is great.
this is great.
Yeah.
6 months later, I received a patent.
Oh, wow.
The U.S. Patent Office was the first federal government office to get computerized.
Oh, my goodness.
And it sped things up. They can do their research now.
Nice.
And they had all their stuff downloaded. So
Yeah, for you youngins, we grew up without computers. We didn't have cell phones. We
Yeah.
didn't have computers. That's amazing. So it got done that fast because that's when computers came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
and that just throws you back to make you want. Anyway,
It really does throw you back. I mean, you just took me back to the 90s.
I knew I had something, but I knew it wasn't big enough to, I thought,
To support the family.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, I kept on working, and then of course 1992, when oil prices fell, people were struggling to find jobs. There was geologists stacking grocery shelves,
Right.
in town. People were just trying to make a living.
Yeah.
I knew geologists who went on working derricks on running rigs. Anyway, I got lucky. I went to work for Pheno Oil and Chemical Company at the Big Xtreme Refinery.
Nice.
I tell people I put the patent underneath my bed, and I talk to people about it, but I never did do much with it. You
Right.
know. Well, times changed. The shale play showed up. The amount of water has gone from, I don't know, 5 million to 50 million.
Wow.
So the volumes have really increased. But the thing is I never stopped thinking about this tool, and I thought, if I'm working inside this tank and I'm able to capture the oil, I should be able to capture the vapors more efficiently.
Right.
Well, the vapor rules and laws, the emissions rules have changed, the laws have changed, and I kept on working this tool. I tell people a lot of summer vacations, my kids were with me in the oil field as we're testing this tool in tanks. I've had this in
That's
tanks
awesome.
since 1990. So my kids were raised in the oil and gas business, literally. They know they know what this tool is all about, and emissions on tanks and things like that.
What made you decide to take it from idea in the 90s to what it is today?
Well, like I said, I kept on working with it. And so I found a company that would allow us to put it in and test it for a year. And we did, and the results were astronomical. What we did is we put my tool in one tank, and the tank sitting next to it, we came off the roof. The traditional way of vapor recovery is done today. And the numbers were different. I was capturing more. And so we had to sit back and study, why was I getting more? Why was my BTUs higher? And of course, we knew the answer.
Yeah, because you've been studying it for so long.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were stabilizing the tank. They were no longer leaking every now and then. Even with vapor recovery, tanks will still leak to the atmosphere every now and then. We stopped that from happening. People think, they see what the package I have today, they think it all showed up at once. It did not. It took years.
Yeah.
A year after this, I thought, well, dummy, if you're sitting there grabbing vapors, you could put fire foam in there.
Good idea.
And it'll put out tank fires.
Wow.
And so I thought, well, how do I prove that? Who's going to let me catch a tank on fire?
Right. Yeah. That is a tough one to do,
Yeah.
do a sample of.
Knock on your door. Hey, can I catch your tank on fire?
Yeah.
I think I can put it out.
Right.
So we went to testing this tool. We started putting fire foam through it and testing the volumes, the spray patterns, when it comes to fire foam, how it stays tied together is the most important thing. And about this time, the fire foam industry changed. About 4 years ago now, they found out that fire foam is very carcinogenic. There's an ingredient in it that's very carcinogenic, and it's killing firemen. And so they took it out. Once they took it out, the fire foam does not stay tied together. Think of suds in your kitchen sink. That's basically what fire foam is. I tell people it's shaving cream. It's what it acts like. You can take a can of Barbasol shaving cream and fill up your bathroom sink twice with it.
Wow.
The fire foam will expand, and it's all foam, and it basically is cooling the flame so rapidly it puts the flame out. And that is so weird to me.
Right, that's amazing.
It also is separating fuel from flame and taking the oxygen out.
And so you incorporated that into your tool.
I incorporated that into my tool. Wow. And so I found a place that we could catch a tank on fire, and you can go to my webpage and see it. We let the tank burn, get completely engulfed. And with a 1-inch hose, a 1-inch stream, about 60 gallons a minute, I put out a tank fire in 15 seconds.
Wow, that's incredible.
Now, I can put 2,000 gallons a minute through it, but we were just showing how it worked.
Right.
And what separates us. Today, when the Midland Fire Department shows up to a tank battery fire, the roof has to be ripped open or gone. That way they can get their fire foam in it. With my tool, I can tie onto it and run a pipe, a 2-inch pipe or 1.5-inch pipe, a football field away. They do no longer have to pull up to the tank battery.
They can be that far away.
They no longer have to risk their lives.
Wow.
They can tie onto that pipe with one hose and pump into it, and the flow is going to be released internally inside that tank with the roof still attached. I've seen fire departments show up, and they can't do anything. They'll spray other tanks and try to keep things cool, but they burn for hours. They don't have that much water to keep things cool that long.
So your tool, how big is this tool? And forgive my ignorance, I don't know size-wise. How big is this?
This tool, like on the fire side, will have a 6-inch release, so it's a 6-inch round pipe.
Okay.
Then it has floats on it.
Okay.
Depending on how tall you are or how big the floats are.
And it has 12 functions.
Around 12 different functions is what we do. There's other issues called RVP, which is reed vapor pressure. When the weather turns cold, around here the gases will not break out of your crude oil. Okay. And they go by the magical number of 9. They say if it's over 9 pounds, we don't buy it. And the reason is if I have 100 barrels of high RVP crude oil that says it's 16 pounds and I sell it to you, once the pump hits it and agitates it and it gets to your tank, it flashes off. You're only getting 90 barrels.
Wow.
Because it flashed off and went.
Right.
So it went to donated to God, to the heavens. And so we're able to go in there and solve this problem.
And it's environmentally safe.
Yeah, sure. Here in West Texas and Southeast New Mexico, I can go right now, here it is in May, and I'll ask, hey, y'all have RVP issues? Oh, no. No, I don't have any. About December, my phone starts ringing. That same guy who told me no is like, hey, we got a tank battery with high RVP. Yeah. So you have to prepare ahead of time when these cold fronts hit. You think about vapors in crude oil, it's distillation 101. You control it with 2 things, pressure and temperature. Well, when it turns cold outside, the gas does not break out. We're able to, and a lot of people are spending a lot of money on leasing and buying equipment, and are cooking their oil, and they're actually damaging their oil. I've heard of cases of this because they're doing it atmospheric. They're not doing it like in a controlled refinery. Anyway, we have ways to help with that. We prevent tanks from exploding. You can actually, the most dangerous time is an initial fill. When you and I have a walk inside that tank, they've been working on it, we'll say, all right, it's good. Put the manway on it. Say this is a big tank out at the Midland Tank Farm, a 300,000 barrel tank. It's 220 foot across. There's a roof in there. It's a floating roof. It floats on oil. Okay. Well, there's actually pipes in there, and at 6 foot it stops. When I emptied the tank, we went in there and we worked on it. This roof is actually just sitting on stilts, waiting for liquid to hit it to lift it off when you get ready. So we had this 250 foot wide tank and the roof is 6 foot tall. The cubic foot in that thing is enormous. We walked in there, we were breathing 21% oxygen, just like we're breathing in this room right here. Well, now we put gasoline or crude oil or kerosene or jet fuel, whatever we're putting in there, a petroleum product. The vapors are breaking out like crazy, and it's mixing with 21% oxygen. We call that a bomb. The difference between a tank fire and a tank explosion is a one-word answer. It's oxygen. Before we ever initially fill these tanks, through my tools, it would be numerous tools in a large tank like this. Say there's 8 tools.
So there was 8 tools that were used to do what your one tool is doing now.
No, on a big tank I would use 8 of my tools.
Okay.
On a great,
Okay,
like
I
out here
gotcha.
at the Midland Tank Farm, these great big tanks, I would take 6 of them, put nitrogen through it, and take 2 of them, take suction. I would change that atmosphere out where you and I were walking around in there.
So it's not a bomb anymore.
I would lower the explosion, take the oxygen out of the equation.
Yeah.
This is a big insurance reduction. I'm able to go to saltwater disposal sites. We handle lots of water here in the Permian.
Yeah.
They get oxygen, they blow up. You can actually go and Google it. North Dakota was so bad that the state legislatures got involved, and they got the North Dakota State University involved, and they actually reached out to me, and we worked on some things, and I'm able to keep the oxygen out of those tanks, keep them completely O2 free. Another thing too is when you get oxygen in your tanks, your corrosion goes way up because you have some H2S in there. So anyway, I've spent years. People think I'm a tank expert. I'm really not. I'm a process guy. I'm a guy who knows what's happening inside that tank.
Right.
I spent 25 years at the Big Xtreme refinery running atmospheric distillation where we took crude oil to 685 degrees, stuck it in a tower, and 70% of it turned to vapor and went up that tower, and we condensed and we made diesel, kerosene, jet fuel, gasoline, gas oils, and then what didn't turn to vapor, we then put it in another tower and we pulled vacuum on it. You know, you think about this, water boils at 212 degrees. That's at 14.7 atmospheric. We changed the atmospheric. We're at 8 millimeters of mercury of vacuum, boiling water at 100 degrees.
Wow.
So now I heat it up to 745 degrees and I cook off some more stuff and I get some diesels and I get some gas oils. That's what I did for 25 years. So I know what's happening inside the world of vapors traveling. And in the day we keep on buying taller and taller tanks. Back in the old days, as we talked about, a 16-foot by 16-foot tank was traditional. Nowadays, they're 35 foot tall.
Wow.
We're expecting that gas molecule, if I have a 10-foot oil level in that tank, to travel 25 foot up and get out of that tank. I tell people today, what you're removing is what works its way out of the tank.
Yeah.
What I remove is what flashes in the tank.
Yeah.
So I'm able to go in there and solve a lot of problems. And the missions world is starting September 1st this year. I don't know how many satellites are up there. I've heard different answers. There's multiple that the EPA has. We've always turned in, as an oil company, as an oil producer, as a refinery, as a gas plant, as a chemical plant, we always turned in what we emitted. Well, it's kind of impossible in a way because you can't see it.
Right. That
Thank
is impossible.
But they have satellites that are looking at us now. And they're going to be able to tell us how much we're emitting.
Yeah.
So Big Brother is looking, and I'm able to go in there and go above and beyond the call and stop this nonsense.
I love that you saw a problem, found that there was a need, right? And then were able to use the experience through the years and create this tool. How long did it take you from, say, thought in the 90s, right? Put the patent under the bed, look back, got to feed the family, right? 40 years of marriage, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Happy anniversary. I'll ask you later what the key is. But how long did it take to now where you are actually calling on customers? When did that step happen? Where you now have your tool helping others and you are fixing the need that was there?
Well, it's kind of come in stages. If I would have went into business in year 2000, no, everyone thinks it's a great idea,
Right.
but they're not going to spend the money on it
Right.
until they have to.
Right.
That's the way the whole business is.
Yes.
Until you force me to, I'm not going to. Now the attention is on emissions. I will tell you this: I was issued new patents May of last year. So
Okay.
so that's my fourth set. So I've worked on it and worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. You know, like I said, it didn't
Love
all
that.
show up overnight.
Absolutely.
It started
Nothing
as
ever does, right?
Yeah, and
I love that. I love that you never gave up too,
Right.
on your vision, and you changed it through the years.
I,
Right?
you know, I kind of kept a level head, like you said, had to feed the family. I wasn't going to walk away from a great job
Right.
and do it unless I had some. Unless, so what I did is I went out and I talked to people. I would go to oil companies and talk to them,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Yeah, I like," and I'm talking 10 years ago. Yeah, I like the idea. As these rules and laws change, I see this happening, you know.
Right.
Well, sure enough, they have changed.
Yeah.
And we're to the point now where we understand we have to clean up our act. I call it the red gas can effect. Any of us who have lawnmowers and things like that, and you have that red gasoline can at your house,
Yes.
if you notice they've changed the funnel, you can't just tank it and pour it and fill up your lawnmower anymore. You got to hold your hand on it and mash down. You wind up getting gas spilt on you, the lawnmower, the cement, and everything else. It's the biggest because back 20 years ago, somebody got burned and they sued. Well, our federal government, our elected officials got a hold of this idea, and now they got the most craziest thing in the world is this funnel that no one can work. It spills more gas out in the ground than anything. It gets it all over you. That's what happens when government gets a hold of things. You know, right now their big complaint is CO2. It takes CO2 to grow plants. Matter of fact, we could use more CO2. You can look at the case studies of plants, how much larger they get, how much more fruit they put on with higher concentrations of CO2. But it's things like methane gas that are bad. Even the Democrats and the Republicans both agree that methane gas is your greatest greenhouse gas out there. It's worth money. It's what we produce here. We don't need to be putting it to the atmosphere anymore. We need to be capturing it, heating our homes, cooking our food. Well, New York can't anymore. I think they banned gas stoves.
I think they did. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see the case study on that. You know, I don't think there is one.
Yeah.
But anyway, I have been around this long, working this tool, and I was real smart. I went into business about 6 or 9 months before COVID hit.
Oh wow.
So I went and I got introduced to. I don't ever sell one hardly the first time I'm there because this is new. They've never
Right.
seen it before.
Right.
I go, I introduce it. They have to think about it. I follow up. We talk about where they can use it at, what's their biggest bang for their buck, what tank batteries should start at.
Yeah.
But I went in the business and I had things rolling, and then COVID hit, and of course, that shut everything down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I told everybody I went from president, CEO to the biggest fan of Days of Our Lives.
Which isn't bad. I love Days of Our Lives, but I'm sure you'd rather been working at that
Oh, yeah.
time. And this is a good time. I want to take a quick break. We do something called Quote of the Day, and then I want to ask you about, just dealing with the highs and lows of the oil and gas business through the years and what got you through. But first, let's pull a quote out. See which card you get. You got the Invent card, which is perfect for someone who just invented a tool. Well, I say just 25 years ago. So what does your card say? If you can read my writing. If not, pass it over. I'll give it a try.
It's a quote from Steve Jobs.
Oh, cool.
If you look closely, most overnight success took a long time.
Oh, how perfect is that for you? That is such a perfect quote. What does that mean to you?
I know exactly what he's talking about. It's what it means for me. and I don't, I'm not successful yet. This is Steve Jobs we're talking about. So,
But you're well on your way.
I hope so. I have a common sense approach that fixes a lot of things. And safety, environmentally, and just return on investment. It's a no-brainer. On what it is I do
Right.
with my technology in tanks. Anyway,
What do you have a favorite quote that maybe has kind of helped you get through some tough times?
I have numerous people who've told me things over the years, and I'll still stop and think about what they said.
Ooh, share one with us.
Well, I'll tell you the one thing that stuck with me was I had an old boss when I was working for a mobile oil company. He said, he always said, if you're going to be successful, you got to learn how to get hungry, because you will be hungry getting there.
That's true.
People think this is an overnight deal. You know, the Beatles weren't an overnight success, and the list goes on and on and on and on. You know, people don't know the work. Still to this day, I get doubts. You know,
and I think that's normal.
It is.
I mean, that's anybody that is open to business, that's an entrepreneur, that has tried something, that has invented something. You're going to have doubts.
Right. People still have doubts, but I can tell you that I'm far enough along in it now, and I've had big enough people in this industry want to buy into it, and so far I've kept it all. That helps the doubts go away.
Yeah.
And then I have customers buying these. I'm getting great results. I'm getting great feedback. I'm getting lots of return customers. Matter of fact, pretty much every one of them.
And I think that's great when the results speak for itself, right? I mean,
Right.
there's no better marketing or sales pitch than that, right?
Yeah.
That when it works, what else can you say? You know, it's like there was a need and it works.
I heard the other day that Best Made, it's my favorite hamburger dill pickle, the Best Made brand.
Oh, yes, yes.
Relish, and I don't know, they make several things.
They make the best.
They reached $1 billion of net worth, and they've used $0 on advertising.
Wow.
They said people
Word of
speak
mouth.
word of mouth. If we can't make it good enough for people to talk about, there's no need in us being in business.
Interesting.
You know,
That's-
and I can't take that approach because I have something new. I have to get it out there. I'm not in the completion business or the drilling business or dirt business. I'm in something that people don't know anything about.
Right.
Don't know that there's an answer out there. So it's me getting the word out there, and that's my biggest goal. Is an obstacle is getting the word out there.
Right.
Finding the, and I tell people, if you didn't walk into the Big Xtreme refinery the last 25 years, I don't know you.
Yeah.
Because I was working 800 hours a year of overtime. I was
Right.
wouldn't nothing work 57 straight daylights, or 2012 I worked 7 sets of 33 or more straight nights. So
Right.
these are 12-hour shifts, by the way, or 13-hour shifts. So your life is there.
Right.
So I had to step out of that world,
Yeah.
come back into the oil production. When I worked for Mobil, I was in oil production. I had to come back to the oil production world to talk to these people in Permian. I didn't know them.
Yeah.
Because the people I used to know, they're
gone.
They're gone. Yeah.
They left in the 90s or
Yeah.
80, right.
Right,
Yeah.
so-
the last bust or whatever.
Yeah. And then I had, of course, Houston. That's a big play for me. Is your big offices, because just showing the CFO how much money we can save them on. And for anyone who's in business, in oil and gas business or the service business, you know how much your insurance is going up. 27% is about average is what I'm hearing this past year. We save you up to 20% on your insurance. They're saying it's going to get worse this coming year.
Well, I love that we're letting people know more about it today, and hopefully, if you have any questions, if you can benefit from this, which if you're in the oil and gas business, you need to reach out. Let's give the website on how people can reach you.
Sure, it's Xtreme, starts with the X, Xtreme, Tank Technologies, that's IES on the end.com. It's XtremeTankTechnologies.com.
Perfect. I want to ask you about the highs and lows of the oil and gas business, because you've seen it all. You've worked for the big companies. You've worked, in the field. You've been at the refinery. Tell me, what is it that you learned the most through the highs and lows of the oil and gas business?
I made up my mind a long time ago. I've been laid off. I was laid off from Mobil Oil Company. I made up my mind a long time ago that it's where I belonged. My perfect fit, I didn't want to go to work in a refinery. Oil production was my thing, but there was no jobs. And so I thought, well, I'll go to work in the refinery, and I'll work there long enough that when the oil business picks back up, it didn't for the longest.
Yeah.
And 10, 12 years it didn't. Well, by that time I was already brainwashed in the refinery business. But I've been laid off before that. Back in the 80s, I was working for a company called National Supply, which is now called National Oil Well Barco, or NOV, in a fab shop back when I was welding. I've been laid off 3 or 4 jobs over the years. But I always knew that the oil and gas business was me. And course, every time you get laid off, you generally take a cut in pay to come back to some other job. But I wasn't going to change horses in the middle of the race.
Right.
I'm going to jump back on that same horse. Yeah. I guess I'm riding for the brand, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, and that is one of my favorite quotes: is riding for the brand. When I went to work for somebody, I worked for them.
Right.
And I gave them my opinion. I gave them my best, and I think sometimes a little bit different than everyone else when it comes to processes and things like that. And that's how I'm able to. That's why I have patents. People say, "Why? What separates me?" And I say, "I've always asked why."
Yeah.
I would drive people crazy asking them why.
But that's how you learn so much.
That's how you learn something.
Yeah.
I want to know what your answer is, and then I'll ask someone else the same question. Their answer's not going to be the same.
Right. But you're going to learn from both of them.
Yeah. And you put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah. That is, I think that is so incredible, because I think a lot of the time people don't ask why, and they just either assume or they don't care. And so you don't learn if you don't ask why. And you can't, you saw that there was this need that needed to be addressed, and you came up with the solution through the years of experience, which I think is fantastic. I want to ask you a question of the day now. Question of the day.
I got to put my glasses on
Glasses
again.
back on again. It's all right. Mine are right there. Can't read it? Let me know. I will put mine on. My handwriting is horrible. You got the smart card because you're a smart guy.
I picked the wrong card then. What is a challenge or conflict you faced, and how did you deal with it?
Okay, I like that.
Oh, good Lord. Conflicts I faced. I never had self-doubt of what this would do. I had self-doubt of whether it would be accepted.
Gotcha. You knew it worked.
I knew it worked.
Right.
It wasn't that just does everyone want to use it?
Right.
There's a difference between inventing a paperclip and inventing, I don't know, something no one uses.
Right.
There's 1 billion paperclips made every year. Right. So I needed to have something that people needed and they would use.
Because what good is it to create it if no one's going to use it?
Right.
Gotcha.
I actually have applied for patents on other tools, and I didn't follow through because it just wasn't. I mean, it would give me a patent and then have my name in the patent office and all that. But whoopie-doo, it's thousands and thousands of dollars it wouldn't sell because it's a very niche market it would go to.
I understand. Yes.
And it wouldn't bring the price to cover it.
Right.
So, in the business world. So that was my greatest thing, was overcoming. And so I spent years talking to people. I've showed this to the heads of TCEQ. I mean, heads of every department that there is. I've showed this to I don't know how many petroleum engineers, chemical engineers, electrical engineers, civil engineers, and I say, shoot a hole in it. Yeah. Show me where I'm wrong.
Right. And they can't.
No.
I love that.
No.
I love that.
It works. It works every time. Someone told me it was the kiss of things to invent. I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Keep it simple, stupid."
Right.
And I never heard that.
Oh, you hadn't heard kiss before?
I didn't know whether to be offended or what. Keep it simple, stupid. But it is something that's very simple and it works every time. We can put out tank fires. We can do it in 15 seconds upon ignition. Yeah. Not a lot of people. I mean, I can put out the entire tank battery. Not a lot of people can say that.
That's true.
That's saving first responders' lives. That's saving operators' lives. That's saving the environment, because you're going to melt those tanks, or they're going to rupture, they're going to tear, and you're going to put liquids on the ground, and that's going to go to our water table.
Well, and to me, and if you save one life, you're successful. I mean, really, if you think about it that way. I know, of course, as a business person, and I'm a business person, I get it. You want to make money, but the thought that you've already saved one person's life that has benefited from it, mm-hmm. that's pretty cool. I mean,
right.
that to me is more about the purpose of why you're doing what you do, right?
Right. It is. I tell people I'm saving the environment, which is, I have granddaughters. Yeah. They're going to have a better air to breathe. Non-attainment's a big issue that's coming around right now. your biggest problem with emission is tanks. Tanks were designed to hold liquids.
Yeah.
Your biggest emitters out there are tanks.
Yeah.
I can bring you the case studies from state organizations who studied refineries, and they just knew that the CO2 coming off the stack was number one, but it wasn't. The tanks outdid them. So I look at it as I'm helping the future. My grandkids, my kids, my great-grandkids who aren't here yet, but,
Yeah.
there's a legacy of that I plan on leaving behind, and that is we have to clean up our oil field. If we don't, we're going to be the red gas can because politicians are going to get a hold of it.
That's a good statement right there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about advice that you would give to someone that is, you know those young people. They're in their 20s and 30s, and they're just moving to West Texas, and you've got some experience to share with them. What advice would you give to someone that is in the oil and gas business, or they are thinking about moving to West Texas and entering the oil and gas business?
Hang on.
Hang on tight. Yeah.
If you think it's easy, you are sadly mistaken. You're not going to. A lot of people come into this business think they're going to get rich.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get rich. You feed your family. You work lots of hours. I've missed lots of little league games. I've missed a lot of things. But that was my job, and it put food on the table, and that's just the way it is. If I had to give them some advice, it would be to grow some thick skin, because you're going to need it. The oil field is not as fast as you think it is, as far as things getting done. I'm working on projects right now that it'll be after Christmas before anything's ever really
Wow.
done. That's just the way business world is.
The way it is.
Especially if you have a lawyer involved. But anyway, get ready for a lot of no's.
Yes.
I don't know how many no's I've heard. It's not those I'm worried about. It's the yeses. The no's will call me back here in about a year or 6 months or something and say, hey, by the way, we need to talk to you. We got a problem with certain tank battery. I get those all the time.
Right.
And I've never had anybody run me out of the office, and it's like, get out of here. This is a crazy snake oil salesman or something like that.
But I think that's important to note, because you're going to be told no matter what business you're in, no matter what you're going to do in
Right.
your life. Somebody is going to tell you no.
I wish I would have written down a lot of the things I've seen and heard, and quotes and you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
At the refinery, I was there. I was on, I don't know, probably 2 big fires they had, explosions. The things I saw, I should have wrote them down, because it was some of the neatest, weirdest things in the world. The aftermath, the destruction,
Right.
the things you look at.
I remember one. When was it? 2000.
It was February the 18th, 2008.
Okay.
8:20 a.m. in the morning.
Okay. I remember, because I reported on in the news.
Did
That
you?
was our big news story of the day.
I'm sure it was.
Yes.
It was my big news story
I
of the day.
bet.
I'll tell you that.
I bet.
I got some pictures of it. Looks like an atomic bomb going off. It was several thousand gallons of, like 64,000 gallons of propane was turned loose before it ever ignited. It just wouldn't
That
ignite.
was scary.
And anyway, the friendships you make. That's something that, what I've been saying here is get thick skin, toughen up some, but the friends you make. I tell people it's a whole lot like serving the military. This is a rough industry. But the friends you make, or friends from now on, you've been through hell and back with them.
Yeah.
So, and that's the way with any of the oil field. It's a great industry. You have
It
great
is
friends
great.
and great people. I wouldn't change it for a thing in the world. I love the oil and gas industry.
Well, I'm so glad that your experiences have brought you to where you are today, and now your patent, your fourth, you said, your fourth patent, it is working. Your tool is changing lives, and it is helping our environment. I want to give one final plug, but before we do, you got to tell me the secret to 40 years of marriage that you and your wife are celebrating. What is the secret, Paul?
Well, we still love each other. You know, that's the main thing. But we still flirt and kid each other, joking all the time. You know, and we take a joke.
I love that.
But we get along better now than we ever have.
Well, good. That is the secret to 40 years right there, spoken from someone who has done it. And I wanted to thank you for sharing your experience with us today. It has been so much fun to hear your story, to learn more about why you do what you do and what, how it came to be. Is there anything that we didn't get to talk about today that you're thinking, oh man, I wanted to make sure that we got out to the listeners and make sure they know about my tool?
Ask me that tomorrow.
Okay. You're going to go home and go, I should have said this.
Should have said this.
Yeah, that's why I always like to give the opportunity.
Yeah. I think we've covered it. I enjoyed. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
I appreciate it. And getting the word out there is what I need to do. And people can reach out to me on LinkedIn or on my webpage.
Fantastic. Let's give the website one more time.
Xtreme, starts with the X. Xtreme. tanktechnologies.com.
Perfect. And we're all about giving back here at the Krista Escamilla Show. Is there a local nonprofit that you want to shout out, or one that maybe you've worked with through the years that you want us to give a little shout out to?
My wife and I participate in an organization where when hurricanes, forest fires, earthquakes, floods hit, the dogs and the cat, the rescuing animals who are left behind, and we donate to that, and we help with that. People don't realize that, and a big part of the group that's helping is you've heard of the Cajun Navy. When we had these hurricanes on our Gulf Coast, people would leave their animals behind, and they couldn't swim out. Well, those dogs and cats and horses and sheep and cows, they got to go somewhere. And so we help with that organization. There's some great people. Cody Johnson is one of them.
Yes.
If you know the country singer.
Yes. He's
big into it. But that's one of the organizations we thought there was a need there. And
that's awesome.
Of course, we're big dog lovers at our house. We only have 5.
Oh, only 5?
Only 5, yeah. And of course,
awesome.
Horses and cattle I grew up on, and roping off horses. I've had horses my whole life. But that's something that. Here's what's funny. My wife wasn't a country girl, in that, so to speak. She was raised in a small town, but she's turned out more calves from me calf roping than anybody else. But she was converted into a
that's great
into a ranch girl.
Yes. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing your time today and your story. I really am glad that we got to learn more about it. If you would like to ask any questions to Paul about his company, about his tool, please give him a call, find the website, follow him on LinkedIn, connect, because it truly is making a difference in West Texas and in oil and gas. And we wish you much success.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that you did not keep that patent under the bed, and that you.
It was actually in a shoebox.
In a shoebox. I'm so
shoebox.
glad you pulled it out, and you are now living your dream, and you are making a difference in the oil and gas community. So thank you so much, Paul. And we thank all of you for listening and joining us today. We want to thank our sponsors, Rig ID Workwear, Tapestry Hotel Midland, JoinCapClub.com, and Midland Cap Company. Because of you, we get to hear great stories like Paul's and how he's changing lives here in West Texas. So we thank you for allowing us to keep the lights on, literally. Don't forget my mottos. As an entrepreneur, business person myself, these words right here. Dream big. You can't ever dream big enough. That's right. Dream big, believe in yourself, and never give up. Thanks for joining us. You make it a great day.